Imagine living your entire life without seeing anything. You'd never know what your family looked like, what your bedroom looked like, or even what you looked like. Well, that's exactly how the character Robert from Raymond Carver's Cathedral felt. Hey guys, I'm Amelia Joy, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how this short story, Cathedral by Raymond Carver, could have been really different had it been written from the blind man's point of view. Point of view is who's telling the story and from what angle they're telling the story. Point of view is one of the most important aspects of a short story because it affects how the reader is seeing the entire plot line. Voice is the part of a story that carries emotional context. A narrator of a story can either be reliable or unreliable. The narrator of the short story Cathedral would not be considered a very reliable narrator. That's why it's so interesting to explore how the plotline could have been different had the story been written from the blind man's point of view. One of the obvious differences that would have occurred had the story been written from the blind man's point of view is that the reader would not know what anything looked like. The reader would, however, get a much more detailed description of how things felt, sounded, smelled, and tasted. At the beginning of the story, the narrator explained his stereotypical views of the blind, which was probably just as obvious to the reader as it was to Robert himself. When the blind man arrives at the narrator's house, he's not exactly given the warmest of greetings, especially after the narrator suggests that they go bowling and that it didn't matter what side of the train he sat on. If the story had been written from the blind man's point of view, it would have been at this moment that the voice of the story would have changed from one of excitement to one of sadness. As dinner begins, the readers would be able to hear the inner thoughts of the blind man. He would think things like, "Why doesn't he like me? Did I do something wrong?" And finally, his decision that he was overreacting. There's no doubt that when the group moved to the sofa, Robert felt like an outsider again, especially when the narrator of the story turned on the television screen. That's why Robert started explaining how he could tell the difference between black and white and color TVs, just to be a part of what was going on. Continuing to tell the story from the blind man's point of view, he probably felt really excited when the original narrator of the story started talking to him about the program that was on the TV. So, Robert suggested that he and the narrator draw a picture together, in hopes that maybe the narrator could put his stereotypical views behind him. And so, they drew a cathedral, and it seemed, at least for a little bit, that the original narrator's stereotypical views had changed. And for Robert, that was more than enough. As you can see, there weren't very many major plot differences that would have occurred had the story been written from the blind man's point of view. This is mostly because all of the characters in the story are experiencing the exact same events at the exact same time. However, there are some differences in what the readers would experience as they're reading the story, such as not being able to see anything and seeing how the ideas of the original narrator would actually hurt Robert.